Thank you for coming to the seminar today. I'd really like to start by first telling you why I'm here. I am an academic advisor in the Music Industry Management program. I advise 231 students currently, and we're hoping to get that down to 200 eventually. Our program has grown so much that we are now raising our academic and admission standards, which is really exciting. The primary reason that I'm here today presenting is because I was elected as the Outstanding Academic Advisor last year. That was a real honor for me to receive that award because it meant that a committee of people that are outside of my college and my discipline looked at my practices and examined what I do on a regular or daily basis in my job and considered it outstanding, and that was a real honor for me and validated that I'm on the right track and what I'm doing is effective. It also gives me great pleasure when I receive good stories, and I was just telling Marie that we received yesterday and then again today information that our recent graduates are getting jobs and getting employed. And that's my goal as an academic advisor, is to make sure that they're getting all of the resources and tools that they need by the time they graduate, that they're employable and they are getting the jobs. And so we're on the right track, we're doing the right things. So the first thing as an academic advisor that I can tell you and share with you that you need to do is to make sure that you're aware of your resources. And that would start with the Academic Advising Guide. And you can find that in a variety of places here under Ferris Resources, also under Academics, and if you go to the Academics home and down under Information, you'll find the Academic Advising Guide. And also you will find it in my FSU, which we will be going to in a little bit here. And it is a very helpful guide, and I really strongly recommend that as an academic advisor that you are aware of each and every one of these links and get yourself familiar with all of the tools that you have as an advisor to help your students. And it'll start with that philosophical statement and the roles and responsibilities that we have as advisors here at the university, and what the university is promising that they will do to support us, what our role is and what we're encouraged to do as an advisor, and also what we expect our students to do as well, because they have a role and responsibility in the advisement appointment as well. We also have some other links, the academic policies. You should be familiar with each and every policy. A lot of these are very helpful in your advising to know what to do in any given one situation. The attendance policies, you know, what do we do when a student has an incomplete? What makes an incomplete? What can a grade change appeal? Or within your individual colleges, there may be separate policies like we have in the College of Business, complaint procedures, and there's an order and a policy that we have to follow if a student comes to you and is complaining about an instructor or something that happened in a class. We need to be fully aware of what those policies are so that we're all consistent and follow those and have the student follow that. Instead of intervening for them, they need to follow it as well. Tools for Advising and Registration is a great place as well that you can find some other helpful tools for yourself. This one in here is a great one for if you have a student that comes to you and they want to do a program change. I'm having both sides of that going on right now. We have those that have realized that the MIM program is not for them and they need to change to another direction. This will help me if I go to a variety of the colleges to show me exactly who do they need to contact to make that program change. And equally, I'm getting bombarded by those that are hearing all the great things that are going on in the MIM program and are wanting to change into our program and wanting to meet with me. So those are some of those tools that will help you, or the college referrals section. General education is another one that you need to be fully aware of as an academic advisor. And this sortable list here, if you're not familiar with it already, is the best list to check for what qualifies as a general education. You need to be aware of your check sheet that you are advising for. And in my program, in the College of Business in the Dean's office, we have listed all of our check sheets. And some of you will be representing multiple programs or have several programs that you are following in the check sheet. And you need to be aware of what general education, and is there electives that they have for general education. For example, Reading 106 does not qualify for a general education, and you need to be aware of that and know that. And this is one of those tools that you can use. And it is also really cool because it shows you those that have the designation of the cultural, global, race, ethnicity, and gender, the scientific understanding, social awareness, foundings, and the writing component to them. And as you scroll down, it will show you when it has multiple attributes to it. It's also pretty cool because you can actually link to the course and see what it's all about. When I sit down with students semester to semester, we use a look up classes feature, and after I have been here for a while and been advising for several years, I'm more aware of what those general education classes are, and in the electives what they can choose and what are more appropriate for their individual program. But those that have programs or representing programs that have free choice of, say, cultural enrichments or social awareness, this is a great guide. But the look up classes feature, which we'll be looking at, is a good place to go as well, that show you actually which of these courses are being offered for a particular semester. This one doesn't show you that. But it's a great resource for you to check out and make sure that you're aware of what those general education is. Here is the counseling and academic support. This is a great place for you to familiarize yourself when you are meeting with a student that may need particular help in a particular area. For example, if they're depressed or they need to be seen at the Burkham Health Center, you have that information for them, hours, the library as well. There's a lot of different resources that we have at the university, and as an academic advisor you should be aware of all of them. And this is a great place to quickly get to a link of an area without having to search the Ferris web and where did their page move to and how many how deep you have to scroll to find out the information. This is a quick way to get it. Another area that I work with a lot is the transfer area. If you have a student that is transferring into your program or has transfer credits or wants to take some community college courses over the summer to either get ahead or catch up, this is a great place to go with the transfers. You can look at, especially in-state, if all of these colleges are already articulated, and you can see exactly, at Grand Rapids Community College, what is equivalent to English 150, or they've changed their classes to 2 letters. You can see exactly which class that they'll be able to take there that will transfer back into Ferris. So this is a great place to get yourself familiar with. The other one that I use often is the virtual collaborative community, and that one is online classes that are offered. They're all the same tuition, and they can take an online class. That helps us in our program a lot because oftentimes they'll want to pick up a class while they're on internship. And so for that reason, it won't matter whether it's Henry Ford or Macomb or Delta, it's the class that they need, and using the transfer network I can see multiple ones that will be equivalent. The website I believe is MCCVLG. I'll send you a link, Susan. I have it under my favorites, and you can look up courses. they use the guest application as well to take those courses too. So
Is it a lot of courses?
there are a lot out there. I use it a lot too for the 3-credit science. We don't have a lot of non-science major 3-credit no lab sciences here. In fact, I think there's one. It's called Weather and Climate, and that one is full in the first 2 days of registration. It's full of honors students and super seniors. We could use a natural science here at Ferris, and a lot of community colleges do offer natural science, and they offer it in an online format, so it's a great place for them to pick that up. This is a link I skipped over there and I wanted to go back to the CLEP test and AP test. Now, it depends on your role as an advisor in your particular programs whether this is applicable to you or not. But in our program, in our college, our advisors are heavily involved in the orientation process. So I actually, in part of our recruitment and retention practices, I am involved in following those that have applied to our program and been admitted to our program. I communicate with them before they even sign up for orientation. I monitor when they have, and then I attend the orientation session, and I'm already advising them before they've even started here. Because of the nature of the music industry management program, we feel very strongly that the relationship that we develop with our student leads to their success. And it's critical. And it's also critical that we identify those that it might not be the right fit for them. And I'm sure in health professions you might come across that same incident. Some of them just aren't cut out to be in the program that they are, and we need to identify that. And so we start that relationship before they even get here. And the CLEP and AP test is a part of that process. That usually is something that you will identify right in the very beginning. Not often you'll see someone trying to attempt a CLEP at their junior or senior level. It's more in the very beginning with English, math. They may have brought in some AP with their literature or history or government. Economics is another one that I see quite often. But they don't always know to tell you, and sometimes they've taken their AP test before they've actually applied to Ferris. And if that happens, Ferris doesn't connect with an ID for them and put it on their student record. And so I actually go out, and I'll show you the link that I use for that. This computer doesn't have the software download for Extender. It's called Extender to view those, but I actually go out and see the high school transcripts before they attend orientation, and I look at that to see if they were in AP courses, and I make a note of it to ask them the question. Did you take the AP test? Did you put Ferris down as receiving that AP score, to make sure that there's some follow-up there and they're getting credit for the class that they took, and if they scored well on it. If some of them are a qualifier for taking a CLEP test, this is the area that you would want to send them to go and see what they can do. So that was the academic advising area. As you could see, there are just so many resources for you, and I would urge you to become familiar with all of those resources that you have, because it'll make your job easier. Now I'm going to show you some of the tips and tools that I use in my FSU. So in my FSU under Faculty Services, the area that I use the most is under Advising Tools. And there's that third link for the Academic Advising Guide. There it is right at your fingertips in case you need to look at some of those resources that you know where they are now after reviewing that. Academic Transcript is probably the place that I use the most for reviewing student transcripts and their progress. And I have a couple of my students that have given me permission to use them in my presentation. This one is Jeremy, excellent student. He's double majoring in music industry management and accountancy. You can see there when they have declared or have failed to declare, which happens sometimes. Last time we talked, you were talking about a minor in event planning. I don't see it here. Have you seen that advisor? Gives you a point of discussion with your student to stay on top of what they're doing. And then this is their academic record as you go, through semester by semester. We in the College of Business all have our check sheets that are official check sheets, but we also, most of the programs use a semester by semester check sheet. This is what I use for academic advising, and now that we have My Degree, there are some similarities with My Degree and the old-fashioned paper pencil way, and I'm going to show you a comparison of those. And it's my opinion that as an academic advisor, you want to use what works for you. For some, the electronic check sheet of My Degree and all of the resources that it has for you to use makes sense and is a very effective tool. For some others, it could be that they want to keep a file of all of their advisees, write on it, date it, and pull it out, and each and every time when you meet with your student, you have documented what you talked about previously and make some adjustments to that. Ours is then plotted out in a semester by semester plan through their senior year. And I will, by the time they get to their junior, senior year, have written all over this and actually have fall, spring, all plotted out. This is when you're doing your internship and making sure that we're paying attention to prerequisites and that they're finishing and graduating on time and in a most efficient manner. My point here was that some advisors are going to gravitate toward My Degree and be using that exclusively. Some advisors are going to be using the file system, and one of the reasons that I do in my program as well is because we have other documents that we have to have on file for them. We have a permission to release information because we have a highly collaborative, student collaborative network that we develop, and I need to be able to have permission to share their email and their cell phone, and I have that documentation that they've given us permission to do that. As also with employers and internships, it works well for that. And then along with that, the internship documentation. We have weekly reports and evaluations that are done. Those aren't in the dean's office official file, those are in the program file. So it makes sense for us in our program to have individual files for students within the program. Their official file is in the dean's office. And that's where, if you have in your curriculum directed electives that are necessary, your college may develop a form that is required that you have to have on file in the dean's office. The copy would be in the program and the official file would be up in the dean's office. Also substitutions. This is in the College of Business, we have a substitution form, but every college is going to have a substitution form that they're going to need. Sometimes you'll accept a course from, especially a transfer course, to eliminate the need for this specific course in your curriculum, depending on what your situation is. But be familiar with what your area is and what the requirements are. You're being in your third semester there in Allied Health. You'd want to consult your department to find out what specific forms and where you find those to be able to keep good records for the student. Let's go down a little bit and talk about some of the different features that we have in the advising tools. I showed you the academic transcript. This test score area, this is an area where you can identify easily whether a student would qualify for a CLEP testing. If they've scored really high in their math subscore, 25, 28, they would be a great candidate for taking that CLEP test and saving themselves a large amount of money rather than taking a full gen ed class to replace those credits, because they wouldn't be required to take Math 115, for example. This is also the area that you're going to find if you have online classes, if the students are required to take an online class or they elect to take an online class through Ferris, they need to take the online orientation quiz. What that is a orientation test that tests their ability to understand Ferris Connect in the Blackboard system. And if you go to ferris.edu/online, it will take you to that page. And that is where the tutorial is that they're required to take before they take an online class here at Ferris. What it does is it goes through a series of tutorials where it shows them this is how you create a discussion thread in Ferris Connect, here's how you upload a document. It makes sure that the student is ready for online learning. And in the test area, that's where you will see that they have conducted that orientation and they're cleared to register for an online class. It'll say online orientation and give it a number, a 1 or a 2. After they've taken that tutorial, it takes 2 business days for that to show up on the bottom of their test score. What I'm doing in my advisement is I'm advising the freshmen to do it, because just like you just brought up that example of blended courses that are using Ferris Connect, so are full-on face-to-face courses, and students need to be fully aware of Ferris Connect and its features and be able to conduct themselves in the class. So it's a good tutorial just to do right as a freshman, because that's something that we use. I want to bring up now one of our students, and looking at the comment section, our tip lady needs to come back so she sees how when we're talking about tip. Do you have tip students in your program? Do you have an associate's degree? You're able to put them in then? Well, I have a challenge in music industry management, does not have an associate's degree. So I originally, back in 2008, incorporated pre-MIM with the associate's designation so that our tip students could still be on our check sheet, under our advisement, and in an associate's path. But last year it was determined that because they cannot graduate from pre-MIM and receive an associate's degree in pre-MIM, that they are incorrectly enrolled and they need to be in an associate's path. So we moved them all to general business with our advisement, and that then became a challenge when my degree came out, because then they look like they have the general business check sheet rather than the MIM. And so I'm having to educate the student that they need to move to the bachelor degree under my degree, which I'll get into. But under the MyFSU, it's in the comments section where you can see when a student is tip eligible, and this is really important that we know who our tip students are and monitor their academic progress. This is a phenomenal and outstanding tuition incentive program for our students from the state of Michigan. It means that they have, at some point in their K through 12 life, they were receiving state assistance, usually Medicaid. My 3 sons qualified as well, and they were under My Child and Medicaid for a time. And it is just a phenomenal benefit that gives a pretty large or significant amount of tuition-based credit for each individual semester, up to 80 credit hours for phase 1. And last I knew, we are one of 2 universities in the state of Michigan that are that accept phase 1 tip students. It's based for community college, but I believe the reason that we are in that is because we don't have a community college within a radius around Ferris, and so we accept them. And it's great because then they can stay in their bachelor path. They can start out in the associates, but continue right on into their bachelor path and receive the full benefit of our bachelor degree programs while they're here. Once they reach 80 credit hours, and I monitor that as an advisor and know when we're approaching that, we need to program change them into a bachelor degree path so that they can take advantage of phase 2 of TIP, which is credit per credit hour benefit rather than a lump sum to their tuition. We've identified an associate's path that they can be in and put MIM as their secondary, so they maintain our advisement. This is also the place that you will, especially if you get a phone call from a parent, then you immediately go to MyFSU, pull up your student record while you're chit-chatting, small talk with the parent, and make sure that they have released, the student has signed a release of information form, and it will be documented there under comments to make sure that you are able to speak with that parent. And if it's not there, you can't say anything to that parent about student records or their progress. This is also a good place for you to see if they've made program changes as well, and if it's often, and that would be another point of conversation that you could have with the student. Here's a good example with Brian. He is a transfer student, and when he first came into my program, at first glance, if you look at the academic transcript, he looks like he did an outstanding job at Heartland Community College, and he has done well in our program as well. But I wanted to point out to you that another good link to check out is the transfer credit articulation link, because this will give you the true story of how he did at Heartland Community College. Not quite as stellar as the A's appeared because those are, the academic transcript is just showing you what we accepted. On the transfer credit articulation, it's going to show you all of the classes and how he did. And so this gave me an opportunity to have a conversation with Brian about why this occurred, what was going on, and make sure that he's getting and receiving the resources that he needs to be successful here at Ferris. Because this community college was in his hometown. Now he's from Chicago. Now he's in lowly Big Rapids, and my Chicago students get a little bit of culture shock when they come to Big Rapids. They miss their big city, and so I wanted to make sure that I tended to Brian's needs to make sure that he was successful here. Financial aid SAP evaluation form. This is one that I'm often asked to provide information for students that may have gone on probation or had a difficult semester. They're required to pass 67% of their enrolled for each semester. If they had a difficult semester, they may be asked to get this, and this is telling this is how many credits they need to graduate. It'll continue on in the form to let the system know that they have this many credits to go, and our recommendation for what they need to register for the next semester. The audit form I most often will get for students who have double majored or have completely changed their major or discipline, and their credit hours that they've achieved exceed that of what would be in our bachelor degree. So maybe they're at about 130 credit hours. The financial aid area is going to red flag that as, why haven't you gotten your degree yet because you have so many credits? I most often will see this in someone has, for example, gotten a degree in education or even an associate's degree in the health professions, and then comes into a completely different discipline with the business program, and I'm not using all their credits. So I just verify on there, this is how many that they've taken that are in our curriculum, here's how many were transfer and that we're not using, and how many more do they have to go within our curriculum. As an advisor, you're required to complete that form. If you need any help with that, the financial aid office is very helpful in trying to help you navigate that form. Okay, this is the area extender documents that I talked about, that if you want to go and see what they have taken in their high school or their college transcripts, maybe they claim to have taken a summer class in college and it's not showing up on their academic transcript. You can go to here and it will pull up the extender document so that you can see if it has in fact hit the system. It could be that they thought they had the transcript sent and it's not here yet, and you need to tell the student that they need to go back to that college and send that in. Or it could be that in the dean's office there was a change in personnel and nobody told her that she was supposed to put those out on the system, that kind of a thing. So as an advisor, I work with students to make sure that all of their college transcripts and maybe some AP or CLEP and all of that is on the system. Now we're going to talk about my degree. Have you worked with my degree at all yet? Good. My degree is the electronic check sheet, and this is a really good tool to use for advisement and planning for students and their academic paths. I'm going back to Cole here because this is my example of my tip student who is in that general business or degree, and it's going to show classes that are not required by our bachelor degree. And so what I have advised Cole to do is to go to the secondary, which is how we identify that's our tip student, which will be the same way for the marketing, but all those classes will be correct when I change them all. And this will pull up the same thing that we have in this check sheet. It'll show everything, but it's in an electronic form. So here's Cole's academic record, and it'll start out with all of those general education areas. In the communication competence, you can see that Cole has achieved this speech communication English 1 and 2 and just has the 3rd English to go, 1 science to go, and then we scroll down into the major requirements. The electives are an area in my program that we have to perform the forced entry function, and we in our college have a person identified as the scribe, or the person that is doing that. Each individual college is going to be handling my degree in a different way. There's either going to be a super user that processes things like the directed electives or substitutions or elective choices to make sure that they're going in their check sheet correctly. As an advisor, it's our job to make sure that that has been completed and make sure it's up to date and correct for each student. There are some cool areas in here. It also shows what they're in progress down at the bottom. I like that here you can see what their current grade point is in their core, in their major, and also overall, so that you can see how they're progressing to meet the requirements of their degree. There's also some good features in my degree that you can use. This is class history is going to show you, very similar to the academic transcript under my FSU, will show you semester by semester how they've what they've achieved. There's also the what if feature. What if feature is great when you're sitting down with a student and talking about possibly adding a minor or double majoring or completely program changing into another discipline. You can use the what if feature or advise them to use the what if feature to see what that looks like. Now if Cole decided that she wanted to do accountancy, if you did this and then process the what if, it will completely change. The MIM program will not be there anymore, and it'll show this is how, if you completely changed your program, what you have already achieved will satisfy those. See where she did the 2nd English in MIM, but it's not checked for accountancy. That's because they require the 250, and that would be something that the student would need to pursue to have an accepted substitution for that class, which they will do. In accountancy, they will. And you can see that she has a long way to go in that major to be able to complete that. That'll give Cole a good idea of how many credits she would have to go to finish that degree. If the student wanted to double major, you would want to make sure that you clicked the major that they're currently in addition to that 2nd major that they're contemplating. And what that will do is combine. Now, again, in the College of Business, the core is going to be the same. The cultural enrichments are going to be the same. The only thing that's different is going to be the major blocks. And this will show the one major block and how that has been achieved, and then the 2nd major block. And the business core is only listed once because it is the same. So that's a great tool that the student can play with if they want to contemplate adding an additional major. The GPA calculator link is another really good one, especially for those that are struggling and want to maintain a particular grade point. And in our program, it's 2.5. And so if they the advice calculator will tell them where their desired GPA and how to get there, how many credits it's going to take. I like the term calculator because now instead of going to the university's GPA calculator and doing a what if, I'm having to put in all of their 3 and an A-. What do you think you're getting? Well, these are midterm advisement appointments. They can just scroll down and say, okay, I think I'm going to get a B+ in accounting, and I think I might get a C+ there, and they can do that for all of it and then calculate to see what their proposed GPA might be. So some pretty cool tools there and resources for the student to use. The planner is much like the semester to semester check sheet that we have before we had my degree. This is an electronic form. So the transcript has now moved over to the left here, and the planner here is on the right. Semester by semester, they can plan out their academic path. And for example, here's a really cool feature, is that from that electronic check sheet, you can click and drag the courses right over to the planner. And we can do this in an advising appointment where I may have told Cole to take this class and I want you to register for that class. You can just click and drag it right over to the check sheet. And new feature that I learned yesterday is if you click on this link right here, Lisa Bessemer shared this with us yesterday, and this will show you the classes that are currently on the upcoming semester and that are offered, so that you can actually look and see, and you could even print it off and select the ones that you want your student to register for. But this down here, you can save a plan and give it a name, and if the student is processing a what if and they want to create an individual plan for what if I did this and what will that look like and how soon will I get done, they can save it and give it a different name. They can do multiple plans and give it a different name each and every time. The notes feature is one that is a little bit different than the comment section in My FSU. This is one that both you and the student are able to view, whereas My FSU, they don't see the comments that we're putting in there. You can choose from a predefined list, of very common advisor type activities. You can customize it by advised to, and then type in what you did. You can go back and modify notes if you want to as well. So it's a really good feature to, if you are wanting to do solely My Degree for your academic advisement, you would want to utilize that feature often, but be aware of what you are putting in the notes section is viewable by the student. Those are most of the tools that I use as an advisor on a regular basis. I do want to talk to you a little bit about beyond the advisement appointment. So the primary reason that we're here for advising is to help the student navigate themselves through their academic path and to graduate in a timely manner, and also paying attention to the financial burden that they're bringing on. In our program, we look at advisement much farther beyond just the advising courses. We're looking at that relationship that we're building, and we almost look at it as a life coach, because oftentimes a student comes to us with much more need than just knowing what the classes are for the next semester. There's times when there's tragedies going on in their life and they're having difficulties. And it's important that that relationship is established early on in their academic career so that they feel comfortable coming to you and talking about their troubles or struggles that they're having, girlfriend, boyfriend issues, parents, or a death in the family, concern over another student. You need to be able to be that person that they can come to so that you can help them find the resources and to be successful. It's also in our program critical for us to develop that relationship because it continues on beyond, first there's the internship placement. We need to make sure that our students are correctly placed in the area that they will succeed the most, and also give them the education out there in the field that helps them make some career decisions. And then beyond graduation is the alumni component. We have a very strong relationship with our alumni in our program, and it helps then to enhance our program ability, as well as alumni can serve in a capacity to provide seminars and workshops, mentoring, and internship site hosts. So there's much more to do with advisement than just sitting down and picking out classes. It's more of a relationship building and helping them in their career goals and to achieve those goals. And as I mentioned, I just got a call or an email right before I took off for here, my summer graduate that just got a booking assistant at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. And you know, that's, you know, I told Marie I wanted to ring a bell. I want one of those bartender bells where, you know, ding, 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 we got another one, yeah. So
How about the Palace?
the Palace, yeah, that one it was just a few days ago that I got a call 3 minutes before 5 o'clock, and she was so excited because she had just landed the executive assistant to the vice president of booking at the Palace of Auburn Hills. So that was another summer graduate. So I know, I want a bell. Ding, 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 ding. Another one. So we're really excited when those types of things happen, that it helps us, confirms and validates what we do in our program in advising, and in my role as an advisor, that we're successful and we're doing what we need to do. Another encouragement that I want to give to you is there are opportunities to become that life coach and be able to be accessible to the students and get that relationship going, and that would be to attend dog days and get to know your students before they even arrive on campus. And give them a face that they can familiarize themselves with, and it's much better. Admissions recruiters do an awesome job on this campus, but the students and the parents really appreciate when they meet people directly from the program that they're interested in. We also entertain one-on-one visits with our prospective students and parents. In fact, today I have a father and his daughter that are here from Chicago, and they didn't want to do the general admission tour and all that, so we set them up to attend class. They went to Dan's music business class this morning. They went to our RSO or MEMA meeting at 11 o'clock to see what that's all about. Then we got lunch passes. We have a Bulldog card in the College of Business where some of our, a variety, I select those students so that the student prospect and their parent is getting the freshman perspective, the senior perspective, the transfer student perspective, and so that they can talk directly with other students that are already in the program about their experiences. And then they will be going to the afternoon class, or they're in that right now, the music tech class. And at 3 o'clock, I have another set of students that are going to give them a tour of the library, the rec center, and the music center. So that's something.
So real, Dan.
Yeah. Right, and you know, and I don't mean to, you know, be that way, but that's the experience they want. Then, you know, all I have to do is send out an email to my students who have given me, you know, permission to communicate with them that way. And some of them, it's not their ferris.edu, it's the one. I promise not to abuse it if they give me the one they're actually going to look at on a regular basis. And so that's our agreement. And then I shoot that out, and I had more volunteers to participate in giving them the tour than I really needed. So the students are very much engaged and want to help and talk about their experience here. So another thing that advisors can do is to participate in their RSO and some of their activities. Attend those, and that way you get to know who they are outside of just your advisement appointment, and it really does assist you in advising them for their career goals as well. So that is my presentation for you. Does anyone have any questions?
Did a good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I do hope that you learned something today, and there is homework for you. And I have those here if you want to take one with you. It is also going to be available on the website. Is my understanding that if you attend 5 of these sessions and turn in the homework, there is that PDI money that it comes back to you.
Do we send that into Marie or to you?
It'll be turned into me, and then I'm going to collect them all and turn them in. So, all right.
Great.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.